If you look through the history of American television, you'll find few figures as influential or as downright fascinating as Michael Landon. He wore many hats: actor, writer, director, producer, even a brief stint as a teen idol with a couple of singles released under his name. The guy was everywhere, weaving himself into the fabric of primetime TV from the 1950s all the way to the 1990s. But that success story didn't just drop out of the sky. He arrived on the scene as a shy and anxious kid named Eugene Orowitz, born on Halloween, October 31st, 1936, in Forest Hills, Queens. He was the second child of Eli Maurice Orowitz, who was Jewish, and Kathleen Peggy O'Neill, who was Roman Catholic. It was a family dynamic that many might have considered unusual in that era, bridging two different faiths under one roof. And it was a roof overshadowed by real turmoil. His mother battled severe mental health struggles, attempting suicide multiple times, and those episodes left him shaken from a tender age. When your childhood memories include pulling your mother out of the ocean to save her from drowning herself, you grow up fast and learn to wear emotional armor, even if you're only 4 or 5 years old. In 1941, the Orowitz family left New York for Collingswood, New Jersey. Young Eugene's older sister, Evelyn, had been around since 1933, so she was old enough to notice her little brother's transformation as they settled into their new environment. But settling might not be the best word, because daily life was far from peaceful. One of the heartbreaks of Eugene's childhood was the bedwetting problem, triggered, no doubt, by the stress swirling around him. His mother's way of handling that issue was to hang his wet sheets outside for everyone to see, a humiliating act that made him feel even more alone. So he became introspective and anxious, the kind of kid who needed an escape route from the drama at home. He found some solace in sports, especially once he got to Collingswood High School. And while it might be surprising to think of that gentle, soft-spoken persona as an athletic star, that's exactly what happened. One day he discovered the javelin, a track and field event that tests both strength and technique. Turns out he had a knack for it. By 1954, in his senior year, he launched the javelin 193 feet, 4 inches, nearly 59 meters, the longest throw by any high school athlete in the entire country that year. It's easy to imagine how his coach or fellow track teammates reacted. Wide-eyed amazement, a sense that this quiet kid had tapped into something extraordinary. Colleges took note, including the University of Southern California, which offered him an athletic scholarship. Suddenly, his future looked a lot brighter. Here was a way out of the gloom at home, a chance to reinvent himself and ride that javelin throw into a new life. But the thing about life is that it doesn't always roll out a welcome mat for your hopes. After beginning his studies at USC, Eugene tore shoulder ligaments. In an instant, that javelin dream evaporated, and so did his scholarship. With no plan B lined up, he drifted. He dropped out of USC. In a different era, or under different circumstances, maybe he'd have gone back to the East Coast, tried to patch things up at home, or found a mundane job. Instead, fate nudged him in a different direction entirely, straight into the heart of show business. He ended up working at a gas station right across from Warner Brothers Studios. It sounds almost too good for a movie script, but that's what happened. He'd fill up the tanks of big studio players, eavesdrop on conversations, watch folks drive by, and maybe daydream about being on the other side of that fence. At some point, Eugene decided he needed a stage name, because with a name like Orowitz, it wasn't so easy to open doors in 1950s Hollywood. He started scanning a phone book and found Michael Landon. Crisp, simple, easy to remember. With that change, he took his first step into a new identity. Sure, he'd keep relationships with his family, but he was forging ahead as a new person, hoping to bury the painful childhood and the humiliations that had chased him. He also dealt with heartbreak in 1959 when his father, Eli Maurice Orowitz, died of a heart attack. That blow marked him deeply. He was in his early 20s, still struggling to get a foothold in acting, and now faced the finality of losing a parent. By then, though, he'd begun picking up small roles. One of his earliest credited TV spots was in 1956 on an anthology series called Telephone Time, in an episode titled The Mystery of Caspar Hauser. A year later, in 1957, Michael landed a starring role in a teen horror flick called I Was a Teenage Werewolf. It sounds campy now, but that role was a big break. He even had a tie-in single released under the moniker Michael Landon, or the Teenage Werewolf, trying to capitalize on the film's audience. The record didn't exactly launch him as the next Elvis, but it set the stage for teen magazine coverage. Over the next year or two, he bounced around in B-movies like Maracaibo, High School Confidential, and God's Little Acre. Plus, he made cameo appearances in various TV series. He was building up a resume, modest but steady, and honing the craft of working on camera. And he always had that intangible presence that made casting directors do a double take. Then, in 1959, came the opportunity that would define his next decade and catapult him to real fame, Bonanza. Landon was only 22 when he was cast as Little Joe Cartwright, the youngest son in the Cartwright clan. The series was a Western, set on the sprawling Ponderosa Ranch, and it was one of the earliest TV shows filmed in color. Little Joe was the charming, impulsive, big-hearted son, and audiences ate it up. Landon's face became a staple in households across America. As the show soared in the ratings, hitting number one from 1964 to 1967, his popularity skyrocketed. But it wasn't enough for Michael Landon just to act. He wanted creative input. So by 1962, he wrote his first script for Bonanza. By 1968, he was directing episodes. That set a pattern that would define his career. He always wanted to step behind the camera, shape the stories, and craft the arcs. If he was going to be part of a TV family, he wanted to have a say in what that family did each week. During that run, tragedy struck again. His father's death had been in 1959, but as Bonanza progressed, he also coped with his mother's eventual passing in 1981. Each family loss weighed heavily, perhaps fueling the emotional sincerity he brought to his characters. After 14 seasons, Bonanza finally concluded in January 1973, partially triggered by the sudden death of co-star Dan Blocker. The end of the show was bittersweet. Landon was well known by the public, beloved for playing the spirited Little Joe, but behind the scenes, he was itching for something new. He'd gained a ton of experience writing and directing for Bonanza. He wanted to parlay that into new projects. And he was also juggling personal responsibilities. By then, Michael had married more than once, fathering several children, adopting some, and trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy amid the relentless demands of filming. That same year, 1973, he faced a near-catastrophic event. His eldest daughter, Cheryl, was involved in a life-threatening car crash, which nearly killed her. That crisis reaffirmed his devotion to family. Michael was never shy about proclaiming how important family was both on and off the set. So in 1974, when he was approached about developing a TV movie based on Laura Ingalls Wilder's Little House on the Prairie, it was a match made in heaven. He not only starred as Charles Ingalls, the sturdy, compassionate father figure, but also served as executive producer, writer, and sometimes director. The show debuted on NBC later that year, instantly resonating with families yearning for wholesome, pioneer-era storytelling. Landon shaped it as a gentle, moral universe. Life on the prairie could be harsh, but It was also brightened by love, community, and a sense of values. Critics might have dismissed it as too sentimental, but viewers were hooked. The show became a staple on TV sets across America. Landon would tweak scripts to ensure each episode ended with a redemptive or heartfelt note. He also discovered young talents like Melissa Gilbert and mentored them, effectively becoming the fatherly presence they mirrored on camera. Little House on the Prairie ended in 1983, but Landon extended the brand into a new iteration called Little House, A New Beginning, and a few follow-up TV movies. By that point, he was a TV legend, 2 consecutive hits under his belt. Next, he took a dramatic turn, Highway to Heaven, which premiered in 1984. This time, Landon portrayed Jonathan Smith, an angel on probation traveling the country to help people find hope. It was schmaltzy, uplifting, and brimming with moral lessons. Exactly what many audiences wanted during that time. Co-starring his old friend Victor French as Mark Gordon, Highway to Heaven was also special because it was wholly under Landon's control. He was the executive producer, the star, the frequent director, and the one calling the shots behind the scenes. The premise? Jonathan Smith, as an angel, would drop into everyday communities and fix hearts, mend relationships, and remind people of the power of kindness. Once again, some critics shrugged it off as sappy, but it found a loyal fan base, and Landon reveled in the creative freedom. He had matured from the anxious kid with the javelin to an unstoppable force in the TV world, somebody who shaped story arcs, wrote dialogue, taught child actors how to cry on cue, and orchestrated everything from casting to final edits. Along the way, he never quite let go of smaller side ventures. He sometimes dabbled in producing or writing for TV movies. In 1983, he co-produced Love is Forever, about an American journalist in Laos. He also wrote and directed a feature film called Sam's Son in 1984, which was a loose autobiography capturing a boy's complicated relationship with his mother, his father, and his athletic aspirations. By 1990, he'd done Where Pigeons Go to Die, another TV movie that displayed his gentle, nostalgic storytelling. He also began developing a new CBS pilot, Us, in 1991, intending to star once again. But life had other plans. Landon was known for being a heavy smoker, rumored to be a chain smoker on set. He also drank fairly heavily. For years, the stress of show running, plus those old emotional scars from childhood, might have contributed to these habits. Then in early April 1991, while on a skiing trip, he started experiencing severe headaches. Tests revealed the worst possible news: inoperable pancreatic cancer that had already spread. The doctors gave him no illusions about the severity. This was basically a death sentence. Ever the showman, Landon decided to face this diagnosis publicly. He even appeared on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, chastising the tabloids for sensationalizing his illness. He tried to maintain some optimism, but behind the scenes it was brutal. Emergency surgery for a blood clot in his leg gave him a few more weeks, but the disease was unrelenting. In June 1991, Life magazine featured a cover story on him, capturing his last stand in an intimate interview. He spoke about family, about how he wanted to spend his final weeks at his Malibu home, cherishing every moment with his wife Cindy and his children. On July 1st, 1991, Michael Landon died at age 54, surrounded by family. His official cause of death was pancreatic cancer. A wave of grief swept across the entertainment community. Here was the man who played 2 of America's most beloved father figures, Little Joe and Charles Ingalls, and an angel on Highway to Heaven. He'd ushered in decades worth of sentimental, family-oriented television. Now he was gone, leaving a massive void. His funeral took place at Hillside Memorial Park Cemetery in Culver City, California, where he was interred in a family mausoleum. The epitaph read, "He seized life with joy. He gave to life generously. He leaves a legacy of love and laughter." Over the years, that sentiment would ring true to fans who saw him as the benevolent father or the kind neighbor or the well-meaning angel who tried to help them see that goodness still exists in this world. Those who worked closely with him always mentioned the pranks, the sense of humor, the willingness to get silly behind the camera to lighten the mood. He might slip a bizarre line into the script or toy with a co-star's props just to get a reaction. Some mention a story about him offering Johnny Carson a dinner menu with cat references, an inside joke about Carson's fear that he might have run over a cat. He had that comedic streak, but there was also the paternal side. On Bonanza, he eventually became the show's creative backbone. On Little House, he played a father, but also acted as a real mentor to the child actors. And on Highway to Heaven, he dived deeper into the spiritual aspect of storytelling, wanting to show how redemption can be found in everyday life. He also had his complexities. He was known to be conservative in some regards, praising Ronald Reagan. But in the last years, he spoke out on environmental issues and criticized the extremes of political correctness. People are layered, after all. And so decades after his passing, Michael Landon's memory lingers in multiple ways. Some fans approach him as a nostalgia figure, remembering how their grandparents or parents never missed an episode of Little House or Bonanza. Others focus on his behind-the-scenes talents, the writing, the directing, the push to keep network TV family-friendly. Then there's the personal side, the javelin thrower who overcame intense childhood trauma, rebranded himself with a new name, and built an empire in Hollywood from scratch. He was a father, 3 times married, raising a blended family that included biological and adopted kids. He also navigated heartbreak, losing people he loved along the way, and carried a spiritual or philosophical outlook about God, truth, and relationships. The illusions of Hollywood can be mesmerizing, but Landon's on-set colleagues repeatedly insisted that he remained accessible and warm, rarely letting stardom warp his sense of humor or empathy. In certain places, you can still stumble across tributes that keep his name alive. There's a community building in Malibu's Bluffs Park called the Michael Landon Center, dedicated in his honor. Collingswood, the small town in New Jersey where he grew up, has a plaque in Knight Park near a playground whimsically nicknamed the Little Treehouse on the Prairie. For a while, that plaque was removed, stirring local debate, but eventually it was reinstalled so kids in the modern generation might look up from their swings and read about the local boy who soared to Hollywood stardom. You also see family tributes, like the TV specials his son, Michael Jr., produced, such as Michael Landon, Memories with Laughter and Love, or the 1999 TV movie Michael Landon, The Father I Knew, also by Michael Jr., which starred John Schneider as Michael Landon, striving to capture the essence of a man who was simultaneously a father figure, a creative genius, and an occasionally flawed human being wrestling with personal demons. When you add it all up, Michael Landon's career spanned over 30 years in Hollywood, from a javelin thrower named Eugene Orowitz to a teenage werewolf to the star of 3 major TV hits, Bonanza, Little House on the Prairie, and Highway to Heaven. He built an empire on gentle moral storytelling that was accessible to the entire family. He became the paternal figure for a generation of viewers. For kids growing up in the 60s, he was Little Joe, the irrepressible youngest Cartwright. For kids in the 70s, he was Pa Ingalls, the wise homesteader who taught them life lessons each week. And for the 80s set, he was Jonathan Smith, the angel in a denim jacket stepping into everyday folks' problems to offer compassion. And so, 30 plus years after his passing, the legacy endures. People still watch old reruns of Little House or Bonanza, letting that comforting presence wash over them. They visit his grave at Hillside Memorial Park, reading the words on his mausoleum. They might note the presence of his adopted son, Mark, who passed in 2009, also interred there, uniting father and son in that final resting place. They tune into tributes and documentaries, or read anecdotes about how, behind the scenes, Landon kept the set lively by playing silly practical jokes or supporting cast members when they were going through tough personal times. His life might have started with the name Eugene Orowitz, overshadowed by a mother's troubled mental health and a bedwetting condition that brought him shame. But from that adversity came resilience. He transformed himself, forging a path in an industry known for chewing people up. He lost a promising athletic scholarship to injury, but rather than wilt, he pivoted to Hollywood. He overcame paternal heartbreak, found success in one of TV's biggest westerns, then pivoted again to shape two more iconic series that remain syndicated to this day. He faced his terminal cancer with candor and grace, letting fans in on his final fight even as the tabloids circled like vultures. And while cancer claimed his life at just 54, he left behind an extraordinary body of work that still evokes laughter, tears, and a wholesome sense of what TV can achieve. It's a testament to him that Michael Landon still sounds like a name that invites comfort, a father figure for some, a moral compass for others, a man who wrote scripts that ended in lessons about love or faith or the importance of family. He believed that a TV show could change people's hearts, or at least remind them that life's troubles are survivable if you stick together. And that's the essence that keeps him relevant. Perhaps that's why visitors to Knight Park in Collingswood or to the Michael Landon Center in Malibu still find warmth in the memory of this man who overcame a fraught childhood, soared on the wings of primetime stardom, and then, with both humility and humor, tried to give the world an extra dose of hope before he left. It's no exaggeration to say that Michael Landon's story is the definition of an American dream arc. Humble beginnings, heartfelt stumbles, unstoppable grit, and a triumphant spirit that resonates long after the cameras stopped rolling.